again, everybody. Welcome back to the Huddle, the Review.com's weekly high school sports show. I'm Executive Editor Rob Toter, joined as always by Sports Editor Mike Brown. Mike, it's hard to believe we're in the stretch run of the high school football season, Week 8 coming up, and things have started to filter out a little bit, and some of the contenders for league championships are more well-defined. Let's start in the NBC, really the big game last week. Louisville staying undefeated in the league, defeating West Branch 34-20, a very entertaining football game.
Right, but as you said, Rob, we talked about this last week. You know, Louisville has depth. I think they have what I like to consider Federal League depth playing in the NBC, and they just came out last year, and that's basically what happened. You know, West Branch played a great game, probably as good a game as they played in a long time, and had the lead with 5 minutes to go. But, you know, Louisville, 2 platoons, and they can just keep running waves of fresh players in at you, and I think they wore the Warriors down and got the win.
Now, let's talk about Louisville. They've got Carrollton this week, and then Salem probably in the showdown for the NBC championship in Week 9. Just keep doing what they're doing, I guess. They play with a lot of confidence, and that goes a long way.
Right. They've been there and done that so many times, and I think they never get shaken, and that's what happened last week. Even though they were down 2 touchdowns, they just knew there was a way they were going to get it, and they got it done. And I think, like you said, just stay the course. Make sure you stay healthy. You know, their key players are all healthy. And I think they're looking good for the postseason. Okay,
let's talk about Salem real quickly. A 36-0 win over Minerva. And they play the Alliance Aviators this week and look to keep going. Alliance has struggled a little bit this year. But Salem really, you know, I think there were a lot of doubters early in the year. Their non-conference schedule, a couple ITCL schools mixed in there, and an East Liverpool team that's not got a great record this year. But in NBC play, you know, they're really starting to roll things, and obviously confidence counts for a lot.
It does, and the thing is, this group has been together with Ron Johnson for, you know, I think they were 0-10 his first year as Salem's coach. So this group has come full circle, and now you've got a bunch of 2 and 3 and a couple 4-year lettermen on that team, including the quarterbacks, a 3-year starter, Matt Weingart, and that's really paying dividends for the Quakers.
Yeah. Let's go back to West Branch real quickly, and I think this week's game against Kansas South is a bit of a trap game.
Oh, it sure is.
Because they're coming off a disappointing loss, and they've got Marlington and Salem to finish out the season. And everybody's, I'm sure, probably saying, don't worry about it. Kansas South's not very good. They're only 2-5, but that's exactly the kind of game that you got to watch out for.
That's right. The Warriors have to worry about 2 things: having a hangover from such a tough loss with Louisville, emotional. You know, you have the game won, and it just gets away at the end. Then you're going on the road the next week to Canton South, and I tell you what, Canton South may be 2-5. But you better look at how they're playing lately. They lost by 1 point to the Salem Quakers, who are undefeated. They lost by 3 points last weekend on the road to the Marlington Dukes, who are a very good football team. And West Branch is going on the road. They better be ready come Friday night.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, Marlington is on the road also, and they're at Minerva. Of course, we know the Lions have struggled a little bit. But, again, this is a trap game for Marlington because you've got your rival West Branch coming up, and then your really big rival Alliance to finish out the season.
Right, and Marlington, I think, has had a nice team all year long. You know, like we talked about the same guys every week, but it seems like those same guys are getting the job done for them. You know, Garrett Floyd had a good game again last week in their win, and the quarterback Chris Pennell's done a good job. You know, they've had good team play overall on that team. That's just a good football team under Bo Balderson.
Okay, switching to the Tri-County League. Western Reserve with a huge win against McDonald, and the Blue Devils. I think we kind of they started out with a couple of losses early in the year, and we kind of wrote them off and said, well, maybe they're moving up in the division. Maybe they're not going to make the playoffs, but they're rolling right now and tied for first place with Mineral Ridge of all teams in the ITCL.
Yeah, Andy Hake, Coach Andy Hake is doing it again. You know, and they lost, like you said, they lost a lot of guys from last year's team, but the guy's one of the best small school coaches in Ohio. I've said that for years, and once again, he's doing the job. You know, they had to get that win last week against McDonald to have a shot at the playoffs. I mean, they still have to win out, I think, but I think all those games they have remaining are winnable games. Last week was the game they had to get, and they got it.
Yeah, absolutely. Sebring Trojans looking for their first win of the season, and I think they've got a real shot this week. They play Lowville, who's 1-6 on the field. They're 2-5 officially. They picked up a win by forfeit earlier this year, but you know, Sebring has always this year, I think they're not your typical winless team. You look at a team that hasn't won and they're losing by 60 points or whatever. And Sebring's been in a lot of their football games. The depth has been an issue that we talked about earlier. But I think I'm sure both teams are looking at this game as a win.
Absolutely, and I think Sebring's got a great shot this week. You look at that Louisville team; they have not scored a point in 2 weeks. They have not scored a point in their last 2 games. Sebring has them at home. Like you said, Sebring's been competitive in every game. I think the Trojans have a great chance to get a W Friday night.
Okay. Portage Trail Conference, Southeast and Waterloo renew their rivalry this week. Both teams have struggled on the field. Southeast 1-6 and Waterloo 2-5, but both teams always geared up for that big rivalry. St. Thomas with an impressive road win over a winless Valley Christian team out of Youngstown, formerly Youngstown Christian. They got another winless team coming up this week in Cleveland Central Catholic, and then things get kind of tough for the Knights. But as we've said before, they've got to win out probably to get a shot at the playoffs.
Yeah, and I was taking a look at them. You're right, Rob. They definitely have to win out, and even then, it's going to be really close. They're going to be in a gray area. If they would win out, probably between 8 and 10 in their region. So we'll have to see how things fall, and they have to hope that some of the teams they've beaten go on and get some wins here these last 3 weeks of the season.
Absolutely. Well, that's it for this week. Make sure you play Pigskin Picks, and you can have a chance to win some great prizes in the Alliance Review's Football Picks Contest. Make sure you check out the Alliance Review and the Review.com all week for previews of all these games Mike and I have just talked about, and, of course, coverage all day in Saturday's paper in the Alliance Review. So for Mike Brown, this is Rob Toder. We will talk to you next week.